Wait, real quick question. Am I allowed to curse or no?
Yes,
Okay.
because
Okay.
knowing my channel, I don't have an audience. So, uh,
Alright.
we are live in terms of recording. So, hi everybody, it's me, Liquid or AJ, and I'm kind of just doing an extra, not I guess special podcast with Would you said you would like to introduce yourself, so why don't you go
Yeah.
ahead and do that?
I'm Mr. Peachey. I am a writer on Wattpad, and here's the latest Florida Man report that I found. Is this real? Am I making it up? Who knows? But according to this, Florida Man lights his own dick on fire because he worships a porcupine god. Anyways, moving on.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm a writer. I'm mostly doing stuff for actual self-publishing things, although I am planning on doing stuff more on Wattpad. I've made Kindstone and Fighters League to tabletop games, and I'm thinking of a third one that is coming up, although I don't want to give too many concepts away because it's all very I don't know if it's gonna really work at all. But yeah, I'm fair. You may also know me from the whole Creepy Leaks drama and my mistakes made there, and you may possibly know me from the whole situation with me versus the ranting community and their whole thing about me being some kind of multiverse breaking god. I honestly do not understand that at all. But I guess
That will be.
yeah, I guess spirit science can really do that to somebody, just make them come up with like these like that sounds like something like from Spider-Verse, right? Like
Oh yeah, I actually did not see that because I have a problem with one of the people who worked on it. So,
oh,
uh, while it's
let's save
tangent,
that for another story.
yeah, that a lot of things you mentioned might be good for a conversation for another time. But we are actually going to talk about a comics, which my other co-host Juju probably will be mad that I'm doing this with you, but that me and her can handle privately. So I
Yeah,
guess
we
opinions on
personally, I would
yeah,
suggest just have like a two-parter thing, like one with me and one with her.
yeah, because
Yeah.
yeah, because
So
yeah, so we're
yeah,
mainly going
so
to be talking about the storytelling end of it.
yeah. So I think to get the obvious one out of the way first, the movies seem to have more influence on how people see these stories than the actual stories themselves. Right here next to me, I have Watchmen and Killing Joke, both written by Alan Moore, and their respective movies. If you were to just base off these stories just from the movies, you would think that most of the superheroes had super strength in Watchmen, and that Batman and Batgirl had sex in Killing Joke, both of which aren't exactly the case, uh, to say the least, for one of them. Anyways, another example of this, we talked about this before recording. Many people actually thought that Spider-Man's including myself actually, many people thought that Spider-Man's webs were biological. They came from his body. I thought that was one of his powers. If you were to try and tell somebody that that one of his powers weren't making webs, they would think you're crazy because the movie said so. Comics, despite what many of us would like to think, aren't entirely mainstream. Comic book movies are, but comics themselves, I mean, I I doubt it because if besides those nerdy channels which analyze movies, you won't really find some run of the mill guy who would be able to differentiate. I can't talk today. Who would be able to really tell the difference between the Watchmen book and the movie? I mean, I think a good reason that it's a good thing that these movies exist, but at the same time, you can't help but have your pet peeves whenever something major happens. Like people think Batman kills now because of the Justice League movie and whatever.
Oh yeah,
And even though just I think how long ago was it? Like 10 years? Like the Dark Knight or what? Like the Dark Knight trilogy established that he doesn't kill, but because the new movie's out, they think the people watching these movies they think that it's normal for Batman to kill now. And the similar thing happened with the '89 film. In fact, I thought it was okay for Batman to kill when I first saw the '89 film as a kid. I didn't know about his no killing rule until I think it was the Lego game. One of the Lego games mentioned that one of his rules was no killing, but I think they just I don't know, something along those lines. I don't remember where exactly I remember it from. I think I think a parent or an adult told me. I don't remember,
Yeah.
but oh my god, I'm sorry for rambling. But the point is that movies seem to have more influence over how people see the character than the character themselves. I didn't even know about the Spider-Man. I mean, not Spider-Man. The Spider-Verse story until the movie. In fact, I'm pretty sure these stories would be a lot more celebrated if there were more movie adaptations of them. But the problem with that is because you can't perfectly adapt something into a film, especially a comic book like, say, Killing Joke. It's going to like by the time every comic book, or at least every major comic book, is ever adapted to a movie. By the time that happens, no matter when it does, the way people like the comic version and the book versions of these universes, like DC and Marvel, are going to be so radically different that they'll be nearly unrecognizable. That's what I think. Uh,
Yeah. And if anything, that's would be the end goal because the current companies that own these IPs, there are certain bits of lore and history that doesn't jive well with their you know their credos because there are certain things that happen in Marvel that Disney wishes and are actively kind of like editing out of their movies.
yeah, but I mean, sometimes it's understandable, sometimes it isn't. For example, I'm pretty sure that they'll never make a Tom Holland Spider-Man movie where he kills his like lover with radioactive spider jizz. That actually happened once. I'm not
Yes,
kidding. Look it up.
I'm
Spider-Man
very
kills
aware of
Aunt
that.
May or something. No, not Aunt May.
Uh,
Mary Jane with radioactive sperm.
yeah,
Uh,
that won't happen. Um,
Probably will become a fan film. Like I'm willing to bet that somebody will make it into
no,
like a Filthy Frank style fan film.
no, I'm sure that concept already exists as like a triple X parody.
Oh God! Even this. Oh no. Anyways,
So, um, I think one of my biggest problems when it comes to like the comics versus the movies was it was either 3 or 2 of Iron Man where they
hmm.
introduced and ruined the Mandarin. So I knew for a while in the comics the Mandarin stopped being this alien wizard guy, which I like that version of him a lot, to a kind of an owner of a terrorist organization. And there is a scene where a certain character screams, "I am the Mandarin." And in the theater, quietly, because my parents were with me and they were kind of enjoying the movie, I was like, "No, you're not. You're the CEO of AIM. You're an entirely different
Oh,
villain."
I think that's three. Yeah,
Yeah. Like, everybody hates Iron Man 2. I personally have a vendetta against 3. For
I've only seen Black Panther, that Marvel movie. I don't remember it seeing any other one of them. Maybe I have. I don't know, but I've seen Black Panther. That was actually the first Marvel movie I've ever really seen in the MCU. And then there's Iron Man 2, which I'm currently watching, and I kind of I think I was at around the scene where Iron Man was watching Bill O'Reilly or something, or some parody of Bill O'Reilly. I don't know, but moving on. So yeah, with these, I think that's another thing. Hold on. No, wait, never mind. Shoot, I was gonna say something about like maybe they shouldn't incorporate so many modern references because it'll make the movie dated. I don't know. Maybe the Bill O'Reilly stuff wasn't exactly a good idea for the time, but who knows? I'm gonna
oh.
move on.
So, I guess since before we get into like the nitty gritty of like comic storytelling in general, I'm personally under the opinion a lot of comic book writers like to go on the path of, oh, one day this is going to go to Hollywood and this is going to be a movie. I would prefer that comic books should really aim to be more of a cartoon or TV series because things while in cartoons might need to be toned down, can at least be faithfully adapted.
Yeah, like take the animated series for example for Batman. I can guarantee you that cartoon has done more for the comics, both in creating characters and adapting stories, than the Dark Knight trilogy. Sure,
Oh,
I know that's a big thing to say, but like I'm pretty sure they not only introduced Harley Quinn, but I think they even like updated Mr. Freeze and gave him. Uh,
they I know instead of the Mr. Freeze got his entire own animated movie that did a better job than the Mr. Freeze in the live action movie when it came
oh
to
yeah,
the animated
um,
series.
oh yeah,
But I can tell you, even though the original animated series was, I guess, meant for kids, it was a lot more faithful and, in some regards, a lot more darker. I specifically remember, I forget, I believe it's the episode called The Man Who Killed Batman, where this kind of like Weasley, like third tier mobster guy, quote
oh
unquote,
yeah,
kills Batman. And then towards the end of the movie, Joker is so pissed off at this guy for killing Batman and kind of like ruining his other half that he shoves the guy in a coffin and plans to drown him in acid.
yeah. I don't know if this was a real episode or not, but I was always as a kid I was always freaked out by this one moment in the show. It was like Christmas or whatever. Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn were working together, and they were hypnotizing Bruce Wayne to pretty much go on this shopping spree. And I'm weirdly traumatized by that because imagine going through that, but I don't know. Maybe it's like a weird metaphor I'm picking up on. Maybe I'm picking up on something that isn't there.
Maybe it's a
But
metaphor on the commercialism of Christmas.
who knows? No, I'm less about that. But like how couple like I'm trying to think of words for this, but pretty much,
Oh, if you love me, you'll buy me this type of situation.
yeah, that kind of situation. Yeah, something like that.
I don't exactly remember that Christmas special. I remember the Joker's Christmas special, which
The one where he flies out of the Arkham Asylum with a giant Christmas tree rocket.
oh yes, where the famous Jingle Bells Batman Smells song came from.
Which will haunt Batman riders for the rest of their lives. For as long as little kids can recognize them on the streets on Christmas Eve.
You have such good you believe that writers get recognition.
Hey, first off, I'm pretty sure. Hey, look, maybe. I,
Maybe at a con, some little kid will
Probably,
walk
I don't
up to
know.
him.
But like, as long as a little kid or like something like, I don't know, maybe it's like just some guy in a Batman t-shirt. I don't know.
Like,
Either way, that song, I remember like yelling that at the top of my lungs in grade school.
oh
Like
yeah.
it was like the last day before Christmas break, final day of the class, I suppose. Everyone's waiting for the bell. Everyone's just dead silent. Long story short, I had like this elderly teacher. I forget her name, but like pretty much she was just angry all the time. Yelled at the class, scared us half to death, and everyone's quiet. I look at the clock. I couldn't read clocks at the time. I'm more like I am. It's easier for me to read digital clocks, but pretty much I recognize this little clock as like, okay, so it's gonna be soon. It's gonna be any moment now, because I kind of trained myself at that point to just look at the clock, look at the little hands. Where are they exactly? And oh, hey, look, it's at that specific angle or whatever. I know it's sad, but moving on. Pretty much, I saw the clock. Okay, any moment till the bell rings and we're out of here. Teacher puts us on the line or whatever. So I go, Jingle bells, Batman smells, Robin laid a dick, and I'm starting screaming. I'm just screaming out the lyrics. And as the teacher's about to tell me to shut up, little bell rings or whatever. All the kids just jump up in unison, go in the line, and I'm just just pretty much ignored.
Yep.
And see, if this were on Tumblr, I would have said that everybody clapped and sang with me because woo, Tumblr.
What's Tumblr?
Tumblr,
It's a joke because Tumblr is
yeah,
dead.
like those like stories where it's like, oh, this girl was saying Merry Xmas, and I said Trump gave us Christmas again, and everybody clapped and cheered, woo. It's like one of those, or is it Facebook? I don't know. I think,
Social media in general.
I guess, yeah.
Embellish your own ego stories.
Yeah, but for me though, it was just I was singing the song like just as loud as I can in this squeaky voice. Nobody else was singing. I was just sort of there.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure I was the only Batman fan in my entire class. Everybody else was into like Marvel or like Zorro or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. So I feel like
One.
Yeah, so I feel like
Never mind. You continue. I was gonna say about like something about like one of my classmates thought Joker was a chick, but moving on.
Yeah, so in my opinion, I feel like when it comes to like beyond the books of the continuing of a story, a comic book story, a cartoon or a TV show, something episodic like a comic book is probably the better way to go than a movie, even though movies get better recognition.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I think when Universal was first making a adaptation of Watchmen, the director wanted it to be like a 4-hour miniseries where like each episode, like there would be like 12 little episodes each based off of like a chapter of the comic, and it would be just like that miniseries. And pretty much Warner Bros. Wanted the movie, so they ditched that one director and found Zack Snyder, who recently made 300, and had him make Watchmen. And they decided it's his job to make the blue animated dong of Watchmen. I don't know. Anyways,
so we kind of talked about briefly on adaptations. Do you want to go into the storytelling aspects of comics in general?
Oh yeah, that's what we were supposed to be talking about.
Yes, the then versus now of where stories seem to be heading when it comes to comic books.
Yeah. All right. So keep in mind the only two comics I have on hand are the older ones we're going to be talking about. Excuse me. I don't have any of the newer comics that I'm going to be mentioning here, so please take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. Okay. But I've noticed through various comic review channels and stuff like that, just to see what the current comics are like, and stuff like Comic Historian, I've noticed that whenever something, I guess, left-leaning shows up, it is sort of highlighted unnecessarily. Now, don't get me wrong, comics have always been political, but let's just say if, for example, I think it was like in a Miss Marvel or something, they mentioned the patriarchy or something like that. Stuff like that,
Oh, yeah. I think the reason it's getting highlighted now, it's a lot more overt. Like, it's a lot more obvious when the messaging shows up, and I can give 2 examples where one is simply the fact that being an X-Man, being a mutant, means you're being discriminated against, whether it's disability, whether it's race, whether it's whatever. And then I can give an example because it's very recent. Harley Quinn issue 56, where they make, in order to like prove like sexism, they make up this awful lie that the pet industry, like the pet shop industry, has been predominantly owned by men, which is a lie, to push like this agenda that every industry is sexist.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I feel like it would be better in general if it wasn't so blatant. Like maybe instead of saying Trump, for example, have like a character represent him. At least then we don't have to, involve superheroes with politics.
Actually,
I mean,
I actually think it needs to go a step lower. Instead of being this is our Trump stand-in, rar rar, he's the bad guy. This is one person who resembles one core idea of a thing I don't like. And that's usually what most villains are. They are the idea of something bad.
yeah. I think there was even like I think there's a Catwoman comic where Penguin wants to build a wall around Gotham City to keep Batman out, and he wants Batman to pay for it because of like assault charges or whatever. I feel like stuff like that, for example, that's at least better than full blown saying Trump is bad.
That is parody level plot.
Yeah, I'm not joking. It's a real comic. You can actually, it's on Comic Story, and like Penguin, like becomes mayor or is running for mayor.
Oh, I remember that. I didn't know he wanted to build a wall.
Yeah, his whole thing is basically he wants to build a wall around Gotham because his whole thing is that the people of Gotham aren't criminals. People who see Gotham as a place for criminals who are coming into the city are seeing it as a city of criminals. So we need to build a wall so we can keep criminals out. I feel like
That doesn't stop crime from the inside. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's like you can tell that this was only a comic that wasn't meant to really like a comment on the situation and more or less just say that, oh, this is clearly bad, you guys. Can't you see that Trump is clearly a mutated penguin man from the sewers? uh, sorry, whenever I think of penguin, I'm always thinking of the Tim Burton penguin. Just
Yeah, so
anyway.
I think reason why like this whole kerfuffle of there's politics in my comic, not because there's politics in my comics, is that there's I can't see anything but politics or being told I'm a neckbeard incel living in my grandmother's basement comments.
Yeah,
That's exactly what they turned Mojo into.
yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. It's less about, oh, there's politics in my comics, because there will always be politics in the comics.
There will always be
It's that
politics in
I
anything.
noticed the politics in the comics.
Yeah, because I'm sorry, but once upon a time comics were war propaganda, so we really can't complain about there being politics. But I think now in this day and age we should really be critical of what's being said and how it is. And a lot of stuff, oh, and I know I'm going to make some people angry, is opposite of what I think the writers are trying to do.
Hmm.
Like they're in I'm currently in community college and I learned of this term and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this applies to everything that the internet is like having a fight over." And it's called woke washing. And it's where an
Oh,
yeah, no, this was taught to me by a 6 foot tall African American man who honestly believes this is the case in modern media. So so pretty much what woke washing is, in order for a company to get the audience they want, they feel like they have to tell a certain message to attract that audience. But instead, that audience, like the message gets warped and then the audience actively runs away from it.
hmm.
That's the reason why without a hint, like there was some hints of like in Black Panther because you've watched it. Well, there was like some like off in the distance mention of like my gang versus your gang. Like nobody was talking about the slave trade in Black Panther.
Yeah. Nobody
Was doing that. So I guess
There
it's
is
that
like a
type of thing.
point made by Killmonger at the end of the movie where he mentioned, or like he briefly references it,
I know
but yeah,
but I know Black Panther's like little sister, like the British guy. She kind of like not meanfully. It was played for a joke, but she's like, don't touch that colonizer."
Yeah, and now like people around my high school at least are like using that word as like slang against all the white kids, including the white kids who are calling other white kids colonizers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's easy ways out of that. Um, you either need to say that you're Jewish or you're Irish, and then you have a victim card. And we shouldn't get
yeah,
into
pretty much.
politics, but if you
Yeah,
are part Irish, how most Irish people got into America was either through political discrimination in Ireland from the British, or in
yeah,
the beginning as indentured servants. So,
yeah. Yeah, I'm always like recognized as German for some reason, though. I guess I look German somehow. I don't know.
no.
But yeah, I guess moving on, moving on.
Yeah, pretty
Enough
much.
about my weird high school for the mentally handicapped Arkham Asylum inmates. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. So storytelling in comics. Yeah. So I think that's pretty much the agreement we'll come on for now. Is that
Yeah.
it's less about there being politics in comics and more that we notice the politics more and it's getting less and less subtle.
Yes.
I mean,
Well,
I can guarantee you there's probably something in Watchmen that has something about Alan Moore's political views about the times, and I just don't notice it because it's
but it's
like
not
the
like
good thing about storytelling is you can have your political opinions said blatantly in the comic or story, but if you're going to outright say, "Oh, Trump is bad," or make direct parallels between the current election or whatever and the comic, then if you can make those, if you can pinpoint what exactly is being said, like just off the top of your head, then it's not good writing.
if you need to have an old woman bust down a wall and scream at your female character, I don't need feminism. I liked it better when men were in charge. Then you're not making the correct point.
Yeah.
And
Anyways,
yeah.
yeah. Anyways, so moving on. I think another thing we should talk about besides the politics in comics is the newer sort of obsession with, I guess, trying to be Watchmen in a sense. Because I guess the best way of describing it is, tell me, when it was the last comic that tried to become this big game changer event that was like I think it was like DC Metal was the last time this happened, where it's like, oh, we're going to change the way you see the DC universe or whatever.
I know. Secret Empire was supposed to do that to Marvel, and everybody had a backflip about it.
Yeah.
For those who don't know what happened in Secret Empire, uh, Captain America is a Hydra agent.
Wait, you're serious?
I'm
You're not
serious.
This
I'm
isn't
not
a
joking.
joke, right?
This
You're
is not
actually
a
serious. They
joke.
made Captain America the biggest enemy of Hydra, a Hydra agent himself.
Yes.
They actually did this and thought it was a good.
Yes. I'm not
Is
a
he
joke.
like mind controlled? Is this like a
No, I
different
can.
dimensional
No,
thing?
I can tell you
Or
what happened. I can tell you what happened. Red Skull got a piece of the Infinity Cube, and with that power, went back in time and indoctrinated Cap's mother to be a Hydra agent. Therefore, Red. Therefore, she would indoctrinate Cap, and therefore redconning the entirety of Captain America. And
and
how this was resolved was not by reforming Cap or like the cosmic universes making Red Skull good. How they resolved this is that some third-rate character wish I had the Cap I knew back, and now there's a second good Cap walking around, while the original Cap, Hydra Cap, is stuck in like high security prison.
so what was the point of changing the original Cap if you're just gonna replace him with a clone?
Cause white man bad. Because
Yeah.
eventually that good Cap dies, and now there's Captain Falcon, Cap Falcon.
Hmm.
Yeah. Which honestly, they should have just done that and have like the Ward versus the Old Master storyline.
Yeah. Anyways, but yeah, that's sort of what I'm talking about. They tried to, I guess, in a sense, be the next Killing Joker, be the next Watchmen, and completely change the way you see the comic industry. But in the process, they come off as we're just going to be edgy for the sake of edge.
Yes.
I mean,
Very much with Secret Empire because Doc Ock and Parker switched bodies, but then the Peter Parker and the Doc Ock body died. So it's just pretty much a young Doc Octopus.
yeah,
And I was like, okay, I guess this is a thing.
yeah, I heard about that. Yeah, I I think the best DC example I could think of from the top of my head was shoot, I'm trying to think about it, but pretty much I think it was oh my god, I don't remember it exactly, but I think it was just something about like it was trying to be like red under the red hood. Pretty much Batman has this side like this new Robin, I think. Uh, and you know, this Robin was the original Robin. He made his own Robin suit or whatever. Uh and basically he died because he killed himself or whatever because he thought Batman was like I don't remember it word for word. Maybe I'm like mistaking it for something else, but pretty much this Robin who was here before like all the other Robins existed and Batman just forgot about him because he hated him because of his skin color or something. I don't know. Something about trying to make Batman racist. Uh,
Uh,
is
I mean,
I don't know if that's a,
out of all the things you could try to accuse a Batman for, like, you know what should be a plot line is a commentary on the Me Too movement. Like some villainess in her civilian identity
accuses
accuses,
Bruce Wayne of like touching her.
yeah, and because of that,
There's
pretty much Bruce Wayne's life falls into shambles, and it's up to him as Batman to try to rectify it, but he can't.
I don't know.
It
I feel
might.
like making Batman into like a molester or something like that, or making him racist, is only going to really make him out more like an antagonist.
I feel.
I think.
Yeah, I really feel that, like, Batman creates his own villain, so any situation political would have to be, like, an inadvertent problem. Like, maybe because he's so busy being Batman, he's not watching his company close enough, and therefore some shady practices are going under his nose.
Oh yeah, I think something like that happens in the first Telltale Batman game, where like it turns out his parents like assassinated themselves or something because they were in debt. I don't know.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, because, at least in America, you can't transfer debt over on a child.
hmm,
So,
yeah. So, hmm.
I guess, yeah, also always trying to be the big game changer in big event stories is a bit of a fatigue.
Yeah.
Also, and this is gonna maybe you know some things about this. It's the new blood from the webcomics world, and I love webcomics. I think I'll leave a link of a couple links of recommendations of webcomics I like. Um,
Alright.
the new blood from webcomics that go into comics can't do
Mm-hmm.
superhero comics. I think, like, if I remember correctly, it happens in Harley Quinn too, but it's the 2 pages of action, 10 pages of I'm talking in a coffee shop.
Hmm.
I know. Like there was an entire side plot in She-Hulk where she has to save a cooking YouTuber. That is also not a joke.
Okay, so I think I'll just leave this like a side note for anybody who wants to make comics who is for some reason listening to this podcast. If you want to, the best way to keep stakes going, avoid world-ending catastrophes and go for small-scale issues that could very well easily be that the main character can easily fail at, powers or no powers.
Yeah.
But don't make it so small that it's absolutely pointless at face value.
Oh yes.
Who knows? I mean,
Yes.
just hearing the plot of that, it makes me not want to read it. But if it's something like, oh, let's say Tony Stark finds out that one of his coworkers may be spying on him and trying to get blueprints to his armors to another company. Not like a supervillain company, just another company wants to, steal his suits. But the thing is, turns out the spy is like a family member, let's say. And they're doing it because they really believe that this company is good and that they're going to do good things with these power armors. So how does Tony keep his armors from going to the other company without betraying his family member's trust and without making his family member think that he's greedy? It's stuff like that.
Yeah, or there's an old skeletal line of plot progression in comics, which I think newer people should, if they want their books to stop being canceled after book 5, really need to take into effect, is story starts with a mundane crime, car Grand Theft Auto, bank robbery, and then, okay, but this, no-name criminal was hired by kind of a D-list criminal, and then it escalates upwards in the plot.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's the easiest and safest way to go when it comes to comic book storytelling, at least with superheroes. When it comes to long-range fantasy adventures, you're putting pictures on your novel.
Yeah.
Which webcomics are really good at. I wish those, trying to think of I want to keep going to Shadowbinders, but the people in Shadowbinders are in comics and they're okay doing their own thing. They actually went into cartooning. But, it's... I had a point and I lost it.
Oh. Well, I guess we're gonna move on then.
Yeah.
So, storytelling, I guess. Actually, let's go back to the small-scale situation real quick. I want to use a bit of an example. So, do you mind if I mention Irene the Wanderer in this?
Yes, we do D&D. That is my character, so yes.
All right, so you do mind or do you not mind?
Go ahead and say it.
All right. So, to basically make up an example, in D&D, usually these situations, the best way to keep players on their toes, in my opinion, is to make the situation a little more or less, just make the frame it in a situation that usually will not be too high stakes. Maybe you'll get hurt, maybe whatever, but then use that location to your advantage and say, okay, what is the most dangerous thing that could be in this peaceful little dungeon, for example? One example I can remember from the top of my head is Irene the Wanderer was looking for a kind stone, basically a sentient wish-granting rock. And she found herself in a dungeon which held the kind stone, but she couldn't figure out where it was. So in each room, I pretty much made it into a normal setting, a bathroom, a kitchen, or whatever, in an ancient house, basically. And I said, okay, so we have an ancient stone house that's been up in the mountains for who knows how long. What kind of dangerous stuff could be lying around in there that could raise the stakes? So in this case, I had a bunch of spiders, some, weird mummified corpses. I was, looking at Irene, and some, ancient weapons that were lying around, stuff like that. Needless to say, somehow Irene nearly killed herself in the process, but that's what I mean. You can't really constantly go with, oh, Irene the Wanderer is gonna fight, the god of, I don't know, soap. Oh my gosh, look at all those suds. It's suffocating her. Oh my god. No, you can't constantly throw gods at people
In
and expect them to go, oh, I'll just beat this god like I did the last 15. No, you gotta make sure that, oh, what if I end up dying to like this dagger that was lying on the ground? Oops, I slipped on a banana peel. Oh no, I'm falling face first into a pit of fire. Who knows? Something like that.
you think he's over exaggerating, but the Irene's greatest weakness is the floor.
Yeah, yeah, I, and that's another thing. Like, if it's an ancient tomb and there are multiple levels to these homes, then clearly one of these floors to these rooms is going to collapse in, and stuff just ensues. Like, I can't just have Irene the Wanderer fight like 15 gods in total, and not like seed in a bunch of like smaller problems along the way. You know, if Irene is just fighting one god after another and winning every time, it's almost a joke. Like say like the god of, I don't know, let's just make up an example. Water shows up and like is flooding Irene's body with water. You know, just stuffing her, basically DeviantArt boring her, right? Well, if she's fought against the goddess of time, space, fire, and all these other gods,
It's not that big of a deal.
sure there are stakes, but at the back of your head, you know that they're going to survive, because if they can fight against time travel, let's be honest, I mean, water isn't going to really do much in comparison.
There's also that, but also making in comic books, and maybe and it's bleeding into cartoons, but cartoons has had a different history where this is allowed. It's where the oh no, something's going on, tee hee, let's make this funny, even though it's clearly not.
Oh yeah, like I think I can think of an example from Irene again. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I for some reason made like a moment where she had a robotic arm and
Uh,
like it gained sentience and killed nearly everybody in the town. Uh, I'm pretty sure I made it a lot funnier than it should have been.
it was a lot okay. It was a lot funnier than it should have been, but beforehand she had been through a lot, and my solution to that situation not would would have been appropriate, would have created a lot of teehee situations. But what
Yeah.
I'm thinking about is it's called the I believe comic books fandom calls it the Marvel's Hitler's Youth, and pretty much it's a comic book with Miss Marvel and Captain Marvel, where Captain Marvel gets a villain called Oracle and pretty much is like, "Hey, I'm gonna kill you if you," because Oracle's thing is that he can always tell the future. He's like, "You're," Oracle's like, "Okay, you're gonna tell me every crime that's gonna happen beforehand." And then Captain Marvel tells Miss Marvel, and Miss Marvel and a ragtag team of college dropouts goes and stops a crime before it happens. Which, by the way,
Wouldn't
is
that cause a lot of moral questions? Like, if you knew,
yes,
for example, that
it
somebody was
does.
going to die, someone's going to be like murdering someone, even if it was 100% true that that was going to happen, wouldn't arresting them before they even had the idea of committing the crime be a little unfair? Because to
It
the person
would.
who's being arrested, I wasn't even thinking about murdering that cat lady. You know, I wasn't even thinking about, you know, taking this overheated pizza, which I told them specifically not to, you know, send it to me sizzling hot straight from the oven, and like stuff it down the pizza guy's pants or something. You know, I wasn't thinking about doing that kind of stuff. So why are you arresting me?
It, but yes, there is that moral question, but throughout the entire book, they're all playing it up as a joke. Like, ha ha ha, we're chasing this guy around in a giant tank. He's just the tank's not loaded. He's just driving it around on the street, but haha, we're gonna arrest him anyways.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
I think a good way of indicating just which kind of situation should be played for jokes and which shouldn't is, would this have any philosophical implications about what the story is trying to say? I think that's the best way of putting it. Oh god, I'm stuttering all the time in this. Oh god. to make up an example, let's say that Joker is about to kill one of Batman's enemies. Say, oh, I don't know, Penguin. Let's say that beforehand, Penguin has this plan to pretty much bankrupt all of Gotham. If Joker kills Penguin for the sake of helping the economy, and Batman stops him, and Penguin goes on to bankrupt Gotham, then what is the story trying to say about Batman's choice to stop the Joker from stopping Penguin in his own way? Now, granted, with that example could be used either way, but still, you see what I mean? Like, you need to make sure that if you imply that, oh, we should pre-arrest people if we're suspicious that they'll do a crime, then
At least,
maybe you should try not to joke too much about it.
yeah, at least with the Western world, you at least need a case of motive before you can detain somebody before a crime happens. But it's like, oh yeah, this guy with this super villain that we've arrested many times said this crime was going to happen.
You
Honestly,
know, he could choose not to tell the truth about the future.
he
He could easily just say to you, Miss Marvel, I mean, Captain Marvel or whatever, hey, Miss Marvel, you know this guy, Oracle, even though he can predict the future, you know he can just lie to you about it too, right?
yes, he can
Like, there's,
lie to you about it. And honestly, if that storyline didn't get canned, I think a way to redeem that storyline is if Oracle was manipulating these not crimes to set up like a domino effect in which he could escape.
or like maybe something like where, oh, you know, this perfectly innocent person, well, they're going to commit a murder, and the only way to stop them, because they'll just break out if you arrest them, is to kill him. Make Captain Marvel kill somebody, then, oh, look, superheroes are bad. And then Oracle could, like, you know, from the shadows, orchestrate a series of events that leads to superheroes unjustly stopping people for whatever reason.
Yes. And I think that's where like the community went with that storyline because I mean they dubbed it Captain Marvel's Hitler Youth,
Uh,
which I mean I don't think Hitler had the ability to see the future, so little
with
hyperbolic
Hitler, it
there.
was basically the Jews are responsible for these crimes. They're going to commit crimes, so we should just arrest them before they commit those crimes. That was his logic. I Yeah, I don't see why Marvel would name anything after Hitler
Well,
if it's about predicting the future.
it was the fandom, not Marvel itself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No.
Hmm.
The comics have stopped bringing Hitler up after Nazi twin Hitler. I
I'm
don't.
gonna pretend I didn't just hear Nazi twin Hitler.
No,
Anyways,
no. I'm okay. So it's a mix between the post-apocalypse and Elseworld, and I forget if it's DC or Marvel. I want to say DC, but in this situation, this this organization wants to repopulate the Earth, and they have clones like DNA samples of the worst things and worst people in the universe's history. And the first two people to come out is Hitler, but in the cloning process, Hitler has now a twin.
okay.
That was the last time I think any comic book tried to make Hitler a serious villain.
I'm pretty sure a better way of portraying Hitler as a villain is just have him at like in the shadows, you know, like hint at him being a greater force. Like have it take place in World War II, and have Hitler as the villain. Just do the same stuff he did in history. Just don't have him literally fight the superhero.
They already did that. It's called the War Comics. All of the War Comics were that. Where they
Sure. Yeah. Well. Yeah.
so I honest again with the politics it being right there.
Yeah. Anyway, so speaking of ridiculous ways of telling stories, let's talk about kids comics for a second, because to be honest, I personally think there aren't enough comics for kids. Uh,
Well, okay, so pretty much there are and there aren't. A lot of comic books are usually cartoon adaptations. There's a Steven Universe comic book adaptation where it, somebody can correct me, but from the books that I read and personally bought, nothing happens in. But there's also cartoons like Miraculous Ladybug that get comic book adaptations, and it's pretty much just Spider-Man in France.
oh, oh,
So, I mean that's not a bad thing per se. Well, there are kids comic books. There I think what is marketed to kids as comic books is really hit or miss. If anybody knows that apparently Squirrel Girl is the number one best-selling comic according to Scholastic.
that doesn't sound right. I don't know what Squirrel Girl.
Yeah.
You mean the character which has their own Tumblr account?
Yes, that's
The
Squirrel Girl.
character which apparently has punched Loki in the face for no reason whatsoever.
Punched Loki in the face, stole Silver Surfer's surfboard, which by the way could kill him. That
This
character.
sounds like a fan fiction. Like, oh, my fan superhero, Squirrel Girl, punched Loki in the face, stole the Silver Surfer's surfboard, and is like an Avenger, writes fan fiction. Oh my gosh, you guys, she is so cool. Look, check out her Tumblr. Check out her Ask blog.
Okay, to be fair, I hate and don't hate this character. She's called Gwenpool, which she's based off of a person I personally am not a fan of, but the idea of Gwenpool is that she's
Gwen Stacy becomes Deadpool, yeah.
no, well,
I
no,
looked
she's
over the comic and
well, that's actually not what happens in the. Okay, the story of Gwenpool is not that in the comic book she's Gwen Stacy, but she's actually not. She's somebody else who's a comic book nerd. But because she's a comic book nerd, she gets sucked into comic book world scenarios.
mm.
And in a sense, she knows everything. So in a sense, her power is fan fiction.
Yeah, in a technical sense, yes.
Yes.
Look, I'm telling you right now, if I was in Gwenpool's situation and I was transported into Gotham City or whatever, you know what I would do? I would eat a bat burger. I wouldn't get involved with these super criminals. I wouldn't, try and meet up with Batman. Oh, hey, I see her fighting Mr. Freeze. Let me help. Oh, God, I'm frozen. Help me, Batman Senpai. No, I would go to Bat Burger, which, for those who don't know, is pretty much Batman-themed burger joint, and try the ice cream there, because they have ice creams based off of the supervillain. Like, I think there's like freeze fries, which is like the ice cream equivalent of French fries, which sounds absolutely delicious.
That sounds delicious, and I know it'd be delicious because brownie fries exist.
Yeah. So like imagine like caramel filled vanilla freeze fries. Oh my god, that sounds delicious.
I think my thing would be, even though it'd probably get me killed, is that I would want to take tours of the 18 million abandoned theme parks around Gotham City.
Yeah, what's up with that? I swear, every park in Gotham City, every zoo, every park, especially the amusement parks, they're all abandoned. Like, how many of these does Gotham have? There's one on an oil rig, for God's sake. Why would you build an amusement park on an oil rig?
Is that the one with the creepy fish? Because I know that, like, there is a place with creepy fish, and it was supposed to be, like, part aquarium because the owner of the theme park's daughter, died before the park was made, but she loved fish. And now, every wall in this park is filled with creepy fish.
I think that's a different one, though. The oil rig one was that it was originally a working oil rig, but because it wasn't getting enough funding, they made it into an amusement park too. So you have an active oil rig with workers and all, while also simultaneously being an amusement park. I'm sorry, but what idiot thought that was a good idea? And this was before Joker. This isn't Joker's plan to like try and blow up everybody at the park. No, this was a thing before Joker was a thing.
Oh.
So somebody's bright idea, who wasn't a murderous clown man, thought it was a good idea to combine an amusement park with a dangerously poor oil rig.
I think Gotham just has a problem with the entertainment industry because every theme park gets shut down. Every zoo has gets shut down because of some type of mutation. Their TV industry creates villains like the Clue and the Riddler, and they can't if they want to keep Dollface in his place, they can't open another toy factory.
Yeah. And then you have that one time Joker poisoned all the beauty products with his Joker venom. And seriously, how is one man able to convince an entire industry to basically lace their products with his Joker product?
The same way White Knight happened, if you remember the White Knight storyline, where Joker temporarily becomes good. Pretty much he becomes good and starts taking pills, but like Batman doesn't believe him and like assaults the Joker, and because of that, in White Knight he kind of Joker becomes this radio star for the misunderstood released convicts that want to reform.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, but it doesn't. It fixes itself, sadly, because White Knight ended.
Anyway, so enough about Gotham's absolutely insane market crashes. Yeah, where were we? Where were we before we were talking about the time Gotham built an amusement park on an active oil rig?
The power of fan fiction, but that is a podcast I am doing with somebody else. But what was it?
I'm gonna get my point out here. So, the biggest turnoff for me when it comes to these teen superheroes is if they're writing fan fiction about the main line of superheroes. Because tell me what sounds more interesting? Somebody who's a big fan of Iron Man and immediately is rewarded with that obsession by becoming a sidekick, or some random orphan kid who hates Batman enough to the point where they'll try to steal his tires, and ends up being accepted as Robin anyways, despite him hating Batman.
Yeah, that's a problem with the new blood, the webcomics people coming into their the mainstream and touching big IPs. I think there really needs to be a ladder on what talent gets what right away.
Yeah.
I don't think okay, you've written 600 chapters of Steven Universe fan fiction, you've drawn your own anthology, which just seems to be strangely all fan fiction about Ed and Eddie, and then one actual independent comic. We're gonna put you on Superman. Wait, there's fan
fiction about Ed and Eddie? No, wait. There's fan fiction about Ed and Eddie.
Yes. There's fan fiction about everything.
Dear God,
why are you surprised?
I grew up watching the show, man. I never really want it to be the truth.
I don't want it to be the truth too, but there's fan fiction about everything.
I know. I mean, there used to be a fan fiction about me out there that a friend wrote about me. It's not public anymore, but the gist of it was that my little character, the little purple hooded guy, sometimes I like to give him these little, puppet-like, these makeshift cloth, burden-esque little tentacle arms, to to like make them look more monstrous, or whatever. Hentai! Pretty much. Pretty much that's what happens in that story.
Yep.
Didn't help that my friend was a dude. So I couldn't even like be that one kind of pervert who's like, ooh. Anyways. So fanfiction stuff.
Well, I mean,
I think
that is another topic. Sure. But
yeah, I'm pretty sure that can work as its own topic for a different guest, because all I can say is, well, if I've had fan fiction written about me, it's weird, and it's almost never the kind of person you want writing it.
Yes, but those people who you never want writing it are now the people who are writing it professionally.
Yeah, didn't Rebecca Sugar create Ed and Eddie art?
Okay,
before?
So that situation, I know it's really off topic, but that situation pisses me to no end.
Yes. What happened exactly?
Okay, yes, she made that piece of art. She made it when she was underage, so no, you can't get her for pedophilia on that. Teenagers.
Wait, why did pedophilia have to do with that? Because I thought she just made fan art.
Well, she made sexual fan art, and all the characters in Ed and Eddie are underage.
Oh! Okay.
Okay.
No.
No, I know. No. Don't run away.
No. No. Bad touch, Gordon. Bad touch. No, we are moving the topic. No.
Okay.
No.
If anybody wants to know that situation, leave a comment. I will explain to it.
No, I don't want those images in my head.
Okay.
No.
But do you understand?
No.
Do you want to understand why that controversy came up, though?
Why? Humor me.
Okay, so she made Steven Universe. Steven Universe has a very interesting fan base. So there was this one fan artist, a very influential at the time fan artist, and she made a fan art picture where the character
was thin.
Amethyst looked a little skinnier, and everybody got pissed off at this fan artist, and pretty much Rebecca Sugar defended this girl. Like, well, gems can shapeshift, and I made Steven Universe to reflect all people, and we as a community really shouldn't be attacking each other over a thing we like. And then the entire fan community of Steven Universe turned on Rebecca Sugar, the woman who made the show, and found that piece of Ed and Eddie fan art, and they've been using it over her head for like the past 3 Steven bombs. And that's the reason why, while I like some of the new changes in Steven Universe, it's not what Rebecca Sugar had planned.
Oh.
Yeah, so while it's a awkward image, people do awkward things. But have you ever played the game The Magic Circle?
Magic Circle? No, I don't think so. The only Steven Universe game I've played was Attack of the Light, I think. Or is that something else?
Magic Circle is a different game that comments on the video game industry, but if you ever watch a Let's Play or get around to playing it, that might be a topic we can discuss about the Magic Circle, because there's a character who, while I empathize with, called Coda. What Coda does in the Magic Circle is what every fandom is becoming, and it scares me.
Oh.
Yeah, because that entire situation where you technically blackmail the creator of the show you like is not a thing you should do. And I think this is a topic we can end off with, like, comic books and stuff. Even though, like, certain creators are butchering certain characters, we don't really have the right to I guess,
Harass them over that.
harass them over it.
Hmm.
Pretty much, yeah, you can say you don't like it, and their proper reaction should be, okay, I'm sorry. And if they don't do that, yes, there's a problem, but you shouldn't continue to talk to them.
Hmm.
Because I were, as much as I'd like to work in entertainment, I do something else. The reaction, if somebody says they don't like something, the reaction is, I'm sorry, what do you think would be do to make it better? And if the person says something you don't like, then you don't listen. But if
Yeah.
enough people say the same thing, you need to listen. You don't say, well, it's not for you. It was for me before you put your hands on it. And that's kind of like the mainstream rah is going on in the comic book community right now. If you understand that.
Yeah.
But I don't think somebody doesn't deserve to be doxxed or have embarrassing life things drug up because they said no, you can't behave this way.
Yeah. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
I can relate to that to an extent. Um, I think I mentioned this to you previously, but pretty much I'm in a situation where no matter what I upload on my YouTube channel, I always get the same exact response, no matter what the video is actually about, because
Yeah.
like everybody's like digging into the video and like seeing things which aren't there. Yeah, it's it's a stupid situation, and they're doing it because yeah, I've done some stupid stuff, both with Creepy Leaks and other dramas, but there's no point in continuing to contact somebody about it if they're not doing what they should
A
to get
person
over it,
a
then that's the
person
end of the
yeah.
story. Don't force them to do it through harassment.
And I think this also goes to like comic books with having heroes reform or villain or good guys turn bad. A
Yeah.
person can't change unless you let them.
Yeah. You can't just and that's what that this sort of ties into a bit of the internet, but with storytelling in general and trying to, have character interactions, you can't have your character force another one to change or be the catalyst to their change. That's just not how people interact with each other. Like if I wanted to convince you that say that Jason Todd was the worst Robin, I cannot change your mind. I cannot just give my points and you'll automatically change. You need to come to your own conclusion based off of my arguments. I can't just say, oh, here are my reasonings. Now believe that Jason Todd is the worst Robin. You need to actually consider my points, and depending on how well I did my argument or how well you understood it or whatever,
I need to also
then
look at the 8 other Robins.
yeah, and you need to come to your own conclusion. You can't just take my word for it. You can't. And if I try to say, through D&D, try and force that on you, if I try to make this whole thing personal, if I said, well, if you don't like Jason Todd, then I guess you don't like edgy boys like me. You don't like goth kids. Well, I'm not really goth, but still, you don't like Tim Burton's. If I try to make it personal, and if I try to tell your friends about it and make your friends argue with you about it, all that's going to do is make everybody who likes Jason Todd look like crazy people.
Yeah.
Crazy, edgy people who missed the times of comics back in the 80s where everybody had big robo arms and giant guns.
Yes. And I think that's a good part to end it off on, so I'm going to end the episode now. And
was I rambling too much?
No, I mean you rambled, but you made a good enough part to end it. So, any other final words you would like to have?
I guess subscribe to Liquid Garnet. I'm not sure how else to say that.
And I'll leave.
Pretty much, I'm not sure if I will be recurring host or something like that. So if you're just gonna come here for me, think twice about it, I guess.
If,
but hey,
if
who knows? Maybe I'll
can,
come back for more stuff about storytelling.
If you preferred him, I'll leave a couple links where you
to
can...
my Wattpad.
Yes.
Yeah, you can check out my Wattpad. My YouTube channel, I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. I always upload stuff and then delete it later, so it's kind of useless. Besides that, you can check out my Wattpad. Excuse me. And I went off on a few tangents. I'm sorry about that. I'm trying to fix that.
Yeah,
and
this will be probably the storytelling in conjunction to superheroes, because we kind of like hit all the bats when it came to superhero storytelling. We started off in the movies, we briefly touched on cartoons. We ended kind of more deeply in the comic books.
Yeah, I think we hit all the major points, get all the, obvious stuff out of the way, I guess. Like just, the same stuff every other podcast would probably say. Did I ever tell you about how I was already in a podcast like this once? Although it wasn't like hour long like this was. It was more like a 20-minute podcast. Called Spedcast, I think. I'm pretty sure. Story for another day, I suppose.
Okay.
So maybe for anybody listening up to this point who still want to know what this is all about, maybe you could explain to them like what this whole podcast is going to be about.
Well, this is just kind of just a...
Like a pilot episode.
Well, I mean, if it's more of an add-on to what I'm doing with Juju, but because me and Juju haven't completed our podcast run, I need, I guess, a filler, so I guess you're my filler co-host.
Yay!
Maybe you'll become permanent. Who knows?
I'll probably come on and off again. My schedule sort of makes... Like, I was totally willing to do the podcast last night, but stuff happened in my schedule, personal stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. But hey, who knows? Maybe one day you'll have Slime Beast join the podcast.
Oh, no. Yes. No. He's the master of podcasts. He has like 5.
How do you manage 5? Okay, Slime Beast. I know one day somebody's going to link this to you, and I want to ask a question. How do you manage 5 podcasts, dude? Like, seriously, do you do one a day? How? How do you manage that? How do you manage that along with whatever else you're doing? I swear, man. Every day I learn something new about you. And besides the fact that your magnificent beard is a real thing and not just on your profile pic. No, not only that, but you manage 5 podcasts. How?
Okay, so...
You're a mad scientist, dude. You're a mad scientist. That's all I'm saying. Anyways.
Okay.